All right, we're live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 14th Litchfield Budget Committee meeting. The time is now 7 o'clock, and I'll call the meeting to order. We have a jam-packed agenda tonight, several in the audience to present to this committee. So hopefully we'll get it all done by the time we wrap at 9:30.
Just talk fast. We'll be all good to go.
Our first agenda item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we move into public input, which is our next agenda item, what I'd like to do is just, we do have a remote participant this evening on the Budget Committee. What I'd like to do is see if the committee is willing to accept remote participation this evening.
Motion made.
So we have a motion by Ms. Douglas. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sun. Discussion? We'll do a roll call vote for the duration of the evening, please. Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
I am a yes.
Yes.
Taylor? Yes.
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Yes. So that passes 8-0-1. Mr. Hayes, if you could just share if there's anybody in the room with you this evening and your reason for being remote, please.
There is nobody in the room with me this evening, and the reason why I'm not there in full time is because I'm concerned still about the COVID-19 and the variants thereof, and I have not been vaccinated.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Appreciate you joining. And again, if you have any technical challenges with hearing us, please feel free to interrupt. We want to make sure that you're fully able to participate, okay?
Thank you. I would say that they need to turn the microphone up just a little bit. It seems to have gone down a little bit.
Okay. They are on notice to do that. All right. Moving forward is public input this evening. Would anyone care to address the board in public input? Seeing nobody running in the door and nobody taking the mic, we'll close public input. There'll be a second round as we conclude tonight. Any changes or additions to tonight's agenda? Just one on my side. We're actually going to remove the school from this agenda this evening. I think we have a jam-packed evening with presentations with the hard stop at 9:30. So we'll table school if everyone's okay with that. Mm-hmm. All right, fantastic. And that is it. Moving into correspondence, I did circulate some correspondence to Mr. Sullivan, who's in attendance this evening. There was one addition to that, which is from Town Administrator Brown. I have it presented here, so let me just see it. So we did receive the town budget report on October 8th, like we do every Friday. Thank you very much. Actually, on October 7th, after we concluded, Mrs. Harrison shared the school enrollment report with the committee. I wanted to make sure we noted that. Also on October 8th, Town Administrator Brown shared great news on our health insurance rates, which seems like forever ago, but it was just last week, right? Where it was actually representative of a decrease of 8.1%, representing a savings in our budget of about $55,000 or so, which is great news. On October 10th, Mr. Sullivan shared the October 7th meeting minutes with myself, which were forwarded to the committee yesterday, October 13th. I know there were some minor edits and amendments made to that by Mr. Leary, which were processed into the minutes. Let's see. On October 13th, Mr. Hayes indicated remote participation for this evening. On October 13th, yesterday, Ms. Varick from the library, she shared a response to some of the discussion points that we discussed last week on October 7th. I did respond to that, thanking her for her email. On October 14th, Mr. Leary shared clarifications and edits that was earlier today needed to the October 7th minutes. And specifically, those were around the building inspector position as well as town clerk discussion, where ultimately the select board was not in favor of the 2 part-time 20-hour employees. Those were updated in the minutes per Mr. Sullivan. And then also just a few hours ago, Mr. Brown, Town Administrator Brown, shared some historical information that we discussed last week. Thank you for pulling that together on the town budget with the committee. Any other correspondence that I had missed or other committee members received? Nope. Okay. We will close correspondence, and now we have our review and acceptance of minutes from October 7th.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve the minutes as amended
Yep. Motion to approve as amended.
from October 7th. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Barca. Discussion. Okay, we will do a roll call vote. Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
I am a yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Yes. Ms.
I'll
Stevens?
abstain.
Abstain? Yes, thank you. Mr.
Yes.
Barca? And Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So that passes 801. Perfect. All right. That concludes the minutes. Next up this evening, and the majority of our evening here is going to be spent reviewing the remainder of the budgets. What we're going to do here, given the participation by both fire and police, sorry, fire was here first. So fire will present first, if that's okay.
The fire chief was gracious enough to offer me his slot, so.
Welcome.
Good
Nice
evening.
to see you again.
Thank you. Same here.
Another year.
Already.
Seriously.
So we can go line by line or just highlight the changes. What would you prefer?
Will of the committee.
Is there an overview you want to present?
We're down.
You know how to get some like my heart right there.
All right. So I'll just kind of go through each line.
So we're going to do fire 4220 first.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
The salary lines, first two, the fire chief and the full-time staff are up due to the merit increases from last year's employee evaluations. Call firefighter wages are actually down. We are down a number of positions on the call department, like many departments around the country. And with some retirements of folks that have been with us for a long, long time, our hourly average wage dropped some. So the combination of the two dropped that line by $12,254. Training wages, same, more or less. The decrease from 1905 last year to 1875 creates a $2,040 decrease in the training wage line. Inspector line is up. Again, that's tied to merit increase from performance evaluations. Overtime training and overtime, full-time overtime is up. Full-time overtime is up based upon, again, the adjustment in wages. Overtime training is down due to a reduction in hours. So up 2939 on 140 and down 891 and 149. No change in the uniform allowance. Health insurance, as we know, is down due to the decrease that the town was able to get. Same with dental. Short-term disability is down. Next year will be the third year of a 3-year commitment, I guess you would call it, to the policy. So it stayed the same. So next year, when we come forward for 2023, there's probably going to be a slight increase. But next year is same as this year. So there's actually a little reduction because we thought we were going into a new contract next year when we weren't. Long-term disability is down $24. No change in computer software. No change in our dispatch contract. Pre-employment screenings is down with a reduced number of call personnel, as less to send for physicals. However, we did keep our new hire physicals as they are because we're actually interviewing 4 people as we speak tonight, so which is greatly needed. Instructor services is up slightly due to an increase in our EMS Con Ed and monthly fire EMS Con Ed contract. Electricity is a $34 change. Now that we've been in a little bit, we're kind of getting some history on a true calendar year history on the new building. Water stays the same. Station repairs and maintenance, no change. Dues and subscription, no change. Put these on, maybe I'll. Oh, look at that. That's easier. Pretty much no change in the next 3 lines. Postage, we've reduced it to $50. And again, it's really if we need to ship something out, so it's more or less a placeholder for that one item we have to ship back for repair or service or something like that. Equipment repair and maintenance is down 20,000 because we've completed our radio replacement program. So that really was the big decrease this year was, for next year, was the fact that we completed that program this year. So vehicle fuel is up due to the anticipated increase in costs. And I hope that by the end of next year, or through next year, we're only paying that 308, but the way the numbers seem to be jumping at the pumps these days. And again, we don't pay taxes on that. So that's not the same as you would pay if you went and filled your car today.
Still hurts.
Custodial maintenance, vehicle repairs and maintenance, all held the same. Books and periodicals. Uniforms and accessories is the next line with a change, again, due to a decrease in numbers. We've dropped that down by $400. Protective equipment is up $1,750 because we typically see a 3-ish% increase. We're being told next year 8%. So, and that's, if we even get stuff in.
So you have to order them now and hope they're here by July.
We ordered in, was it April, Karen? April. And we haven't seen the gear yet. So, and the price increase actually goes up at the end of the month. So it's not even next year, it's the end of the month. So that's that increase there. Medical supplies, like anything, the cost of our medical supplies has skyrocketed as well. So there is an increase there. And just to give you an idea, about 40% of that 6,000 is actually warranty and maintenance contracts on our monitor defibrillators. So that's not all Band-Aids and ice packs. Half of that covers the annual service and the warranty on our two monitor defibrillators. So no change in provisions, no change in equipment. Pretty much the next change is the fire department seminars and conventions. The state recently reevaluated the Fire 1 and 2 training through the New Hampshire Fire Academy. And those programs have been offset by state funds historically. We paid a prorated percentage, and there's a formula. So I honestly can't explain the formula to you, but basically we went from about $650 per student down to $405, down to $135 per student. And on the Fire 2 side, it was like $525 and it's down to $150. So that reflects the almost $3,000 change in that line. So that being said, we're down $27,833 over the 2021 budget. And I'm happy to entertain any questions.
I'll open it up to the committee. Chief, a question. You mentioned a lot of the line items that had gone downward due to staffing and people. And then I also heard you say you were interviewing some 4 people as well. Could the hiring of any of those 4 people impact the reduction here?
I don't know. We're down about 8 positions. So if we
Okay.
can recover half that, it's kind of planned within this.
Okay.
If we were fortunate enough to recover all 8, then it might get tight towards the end of the year, but I wish we had that problem, but like everybody around us, even career departments are having trouble hiring right now. First time in my 30+ year career, we're seeing sign-on bonuses for full-time firefighters. So.
Thank you.
Other questions, please?
A question on line 411 for heating. Justification as far as the big jump there. It looks like so far year to date, you guys are just a tick under $6,000 in spending with, approximately 8 to 9 weeks to go. Why the $7K plus?
So that was, I took last year's and divided what we did total last year by 12. So that's based on 2020s. It's because we're coming into, we didn't have much. I think we just got a delivery last week.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen that bill yet. And we don't typically get them every month during the summer. We get them every 3 to 4 weeks during the winter. They're here filling the tanks.
So what would you think
So-
as far as this upcoming bill on top of the, let's round it to 6K? You thinking that you're going to end up at the end of this year at 12K, 15K? Where do you think you'll end up?
Over the number over, well, two factors there. So it's where we think we're going to be, but also the gallonage we've used at the new price. And I don't recall, Troy, I don't have the formula right here. We're at $1.32 now. What's our new contract?
The new one's $1.85.
So that's a big chunk of it, is the change in the increase in the cost of the fuel.
The run rate seems significantly higher too, though, based on, so the, Mr. Brown provided an estimate of his propane costs. And the run rate for July 20 to 21, June 21 was just under 6,000 gallons. And yet we're estimating almost 7,400 for 2022. So I'd be curious as to why. I mean, we know that we're projecting a cold winter, but is it going to be that substantially colder? So based on the run rates,
So you're doing July to July.
let's say July to June. So
Well, I think
I guess, but either way, the year before that we were under 5.
we're
so,
under 5, but that doesn't include
So it just
the old fire station too, which they were included in the
sure,
budget.
but we were still going from 6 to 7,400. That's still a sizable increase.
I mean, I'd have to go back and look. I took what we did for gallons in calendar 2020
I just knew that a lot of
times
families,
the new.
a lot of families are, looking at what they set their thermostats to and all those other things. If there's ways to find efficiencies within the usage to maybe get us a few bucks here and there. might be-
So everything is computer set to change during the day and so forth,
Mhm.
for that purpose. So everything drops down in the evening.
Weekend mode.
Yeah. So they're all programmable thermostats within the new building. And they are programmed to that.
Okay.
So maybe in preparation for next week, if we could just confirm the usage at 7,300 gallons, that would be helpful.
Chief, if I may, because I do the spreadsheet, I was just quickly looking at it, and I do think we have to go back and revisit the estimated gallons. What's skewing it is, I just quickly go 3-year average on all of our buildings.
Mhm.
If you look at 2019, the usage of gallons was 11,622 gallons.
Mhm.
That's when it was under construction.
Right.
Okay.
So that's driving this estimated 7,000
Okay.
gallons. Probably isn't right. I think we can go back and revisit this and see it probably somewhere around the 6,000 gallons.
Yeah,
estimated
if you
usage.
could do that, that'd be
I
awesome.
work with the chief.
Mhm.
I think that's what's skewed.
That makes sense.
Yeah, when they were building it, they had to keep the temperature at like 70, and that was before the bay doors were on, so it was like really blowing a lot of fuel.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
Yes.
I apologize. I just, it's a formula during the 3-year average and I didn't catch that.
Nope, you're good. Any other questions for the chief?
I just have a quick question about the replacement of the thermal imaging camera. It's in there but zeroed out, and then the more info link
It's
shows
the next line is the 10,000. It goes to 2.
Oh, there it is. Okay, never mind. I retract my question. Sorry.
So that project we finished last year too.
Okay,
So that's why it's zeroed out.
thank you.
Other questions, please? Mr. Hayes, any questions for the fire chief on 4220?
Yeah, no, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. I think that'll wrap 4220. Should we do 4215 ambulance next?
We'll do that, or can we jump to emergency management, and then I'll yield
What,
to Troy.
that's fine.
Okay. So if we could do 4290 emergency management,
Okay.
there's actually no change.
No change. Let's see.
No, our hazmat district contract, due to the lack of training the hazmat teams were able to do last year.
Mhm.
They came in under budget and therefore used that to reduce the 2021, 22, because they run a fiscal year, impact on the community. So it stayed the same for next year. So that's kind of the reason. So as we return to some new norm, obviously that will be different. They'll be back to training more and so forth. So.
Okay.
For line 740, as far as the equipment purchase, has on there about, communications equipment. Is that the same as far as on the fire side of things? Is this the last year of the higher price? Can we expect to go back to the 328 at some point, or is now at this point our 1,500 now the run rate?
So last year we increased that. I believe that was 500 historically.
Yep.
We increased that as we went into the pandemic so that the town had some means if we needed to buy PPE or testing equipment or whatever. Because as we started into it, we didn't have any place to even start. We were fortunate to get pretty much everything either through the state at no cost or reimbursed through the government. So that 500 has been there. That basically provides for repairs of more or less monitors. If we use absorbent booms, pads, and that stuff. So that 15, that additional 1,000 was basically in the event of, no more funding for a pandemic or something else were to happen. So that, and I think there was discussion at the time, and Troy, correct me if I'm wrong, about a trust, revolving trust, but for $1,000, it, didn't really make sense.
I think it was going to be a separate line item that we
I think
could
it was you
zero.
that suggested that last
Yeah,
year.
it wasn't. I don't think we suggested a trust. It suggested a separate line item so that once we were finally put a stake in this thing, we can zero it out more easily, so it didn't get lost in the base budget.
Mhm.
So
That's a Troy Karen question.
that's all right.
Looking back.
We did that last year.
So yeah, so I guess the question would be then maybe we redo that, we re-break it out. So, because if we're saying that 1,000 of it is for COVID related expenses,
Well, it's for
eventually, God willing,
Expected.
Unexpected. I wouldn't say just COVID related. I mean, some type of catastrophic unexpected event was what it was for. It basically was a place to start.
well then yes, maybe a trust fund makes sense because if we keep funding it $1,000 every year, and how often do we really have a catastrophic event that warrants such a purchase?
I also feel like we could probably
Absorb
that.
$1,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions on 4290?
I just think that that'll be one that comes up next time we discuss for voting. It'd be one I'd look at, just the $1,000.
Mr. Hayes, questions on 4290?
No questions. Thank you.
All right. Are you presenting hydrants tonight as well? Or is that going to Troy?
Well, Troy usually handles that, so
Okay.
we'll slide to the back and unless you want to do it from here so Mr. Hayes can hear you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Troy, how do you draw the worst tab on the spreadsheet? I wouldn't wish the hydrant tab on my worst enemy.
Well, for the first time in a few years, we're starting to have a little movement. I'm on ambulance. A little reduction. So we're in the process of, as of right now, kind of in negotiations with the whole rate settlement discussions with Pinachuk. So the information that we have right now is indicating that if some of the items that are tentatively agreed to behind the scenes, kind of there's some negotiations going on, that we're definitely going to be seeing some decreases in the Pinachuk hydrant rental fees. I have a feeling that the decreases might be greater than what we're reflecting right now. But the problem is the agreement isn't settled. There are still items that continue to come up. And when they, as they roll out the rate increases, we may not see the decrease until 6 months into 2022. So I've kind of just done 6 months at zero change and another 6 months at the 14.3% increase.
Have they been able to explain why their rate is 3 times what Manchester charges?
They did a cost of service study.
Uh-huh.
I've not seen that, but our attorneys and the expert witness that the two towns, town of Londonderry and Litchfield, have hired. They've and in that study, this was required actually by the PUC. There's a calculation that lays it right out as to how they determine what the cost is for these rentals. I call them rentals, but it's called fire protection services.
To offer Manchester, buy it out for 1,000, we'll pay him 1,200, we still make out. It's just, it's insane how much we're paying. $1,900 per hydrant to Pennachuck, and one costs $700 to, maybe
Yeah.
Pennachuck should have Manchester manager system, just saying.
Well, it's the same debate year over year, right? Where the cost is high, it's high for even the residents in town, and their rates continue to go up as well, and that's being reflected here. I think the question is, will you have better intel before we bottom line vote in December on this budget?
I think I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic.
Thank you for pursuing it. It's just, yes, this is one of the budgets that makes me mad every time.
It was the selectmen will be briefed with the town of Londonderry Town Council Monday night, and I think it's going to be very educational for both the town of Londonderry and the Litchfield Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Other questions on 4220?
There's not much we can do on it.
Mr. Hayes?
No questions.
No questions. All right. We're good on that. You want to shift into ambulance?
Yeah.
4215.
There are two line items for the ambulance. As you know, we contract ambulance services with the town of Hudson. It's very difficult to determine what the annual cost will be for their services. So it's broken up into two lines. One is the actual service charge, which is based on a percentage of their operating budget. The problem is their operating budget, they have a fiscal year that starts July 1st. We run calendar year. So we're always, 6 months prior year and 6 months of new budget. So really the best way to budget for what we think the cost will be for the basic service is really looking at last year, 2020, and kind of watching where we're trending currently with our first two quarterly payments. So the $60,500 is, as you can see, closely aligned with the 2020 actual cost of $60,497. And it looks like we're trending about the same cost currently right now as the 2020. We find that the last 2 quarters of ambulance services does increase. One, because we're in the new budget. And two, we just in the fall and winter, I think there's more demand for these services.
So is there an offset on the revenue side for this? Like, do we get reimbursement from their insurance providers?
We do not, the town of Hudson. So the way it works, the town of Hudson will do the transport and they will do a billing.
Right.
If they receive that billing, they're happy. If they don't receive it, then they submit a bill to the town of Litchfield, and we are required to pay them for that service. We then start our collection effort, which is a notice, and after 30 days, if we don't receive a response, it is sent to our third-party collection agency, and they start pursuing it on a private level and start pursuing the insurance companies and health insurance companies.
Where do we see the costs associated with that third-party arrangement?
They run strictly on commission. So a portion of whatever they're able to collect, they keep. So
I guess my question is the 60,000. That's reflective of actual. It considers how many calls we have in town.
So that's the 60,500.
Right.
Is to have the service.
Right.
It is based on. There's a sample bill. If you took a look at the blue text down there, I think even if you clicked on the Hudson ambulance contract.
So is the $10,000, that's the third party estimated fee for the year, right?
So that is the fee. That's the amount that we carry, and we always keep you can see we have a running history.
Yep.
So for when the town of Hudson's not paid for the transport, and they'll submit reimbursement to the town. So we'll use this $10,000 to reimburse the town of Hudson, and they're taken care of. We then try to collect the money from the individual that was in our community or a resident of our community. And if we're not lucky, we turn it over to the third party. But the 10,000 it goes directly to the town of Hudson for any services they're not able to collect.
So is it standard that it would be a 100% reimbursement rate and not say 90, 95%?
Well, if we reimburse the town of Hudson, it's they actually reduce it to the Medicaid or Medicare rate.
So it kind of is effectively.
So there is a reduction.
Now, I have just been talking to people in town and saying, other towns, they're lucky if they collect 80 to 90%, yet we're guaranteeing 100. So
Right.
my question would be, has that been factored in? So if we're paying a reduced rate, then in essence, maybe partially factored in, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions on 4215 ambulance?
And they've been more current with their billing. We haven't slipped back into the, oh, surprise, 50 grand.
No, it's been pretty consistent now, and so it's made it a lot easier for us budgeting and planning what the annual cost will be.
Mr. Hayes, questions on 4215?
No, thank you. All set.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. We'll shift gears. I believe next up is police. Wearing blue this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. So we'll start with 4210.
Sounds good.
All right.
Good evening, Chairman Cutter. Good evening, respected Budget Committee members. I want to thank you for the opportunity to get to present the police department's budget. For those of you who might not have met the good Captain Tom Scotty, he's here to assist me and help me with anything he sees appropriate. So digging right into 4210, our police administration budget. Line 110, the PD salary for the administration, you'll see an increase of $4,702. That reflects a 2% wage increase for both the captain and myself. We're entering into the third year of each of our contracts, and that was agreed upon with the town. Moving forward to line 111, PD officers, you'll see an increase here of $22,975. The main driving cost is the 3% salary adjustment per the union contract that was approved by our residents. There's also an increase related to a degree attainment. One of our newer officers received his associate's degree. So that is why you see those increases there. Line 120, PD wages for the administrative assistant. There's an increase of $1,342. That reflects the town's merit-based pay raise that Andrea received. Moving to line 121, the PD prosecutor, an increase of $2,340. Again, that reflects Attorney Coates' merit-based raise that he received. There are no increases to several of the next lines. I can highlight them each if you want, or in the interest of time, I can just jump over them.
We can jump over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
We all got the good news. So line 210, PD health insurance, reduced by $5,519. The next increase you'll see is line 342, PD software support, and that increased by $1,270. And these are the license fees and maintenance fees to upkeep what we call our IMC. That's our records management system database, our cruisers in our cruiser video that we have, and also our LexisNexis, which is our legal software for Attorney Coates' case research. The pre-employment screening, I did increase this line by $1,020, and it's to more accurately reflect what we're spending when we send someone for a psychological exam, for a physical, for the drug testing, and I'm budgeting for 2 employment screening. So you'll see an increase there. Line 550, PD printing, reduced that line item by $100. The largest increase that you'll see in my budget that I adjusted is under 660 PD vehicle repairs and maintenance. We're asking for an increase of $4,250, and that is to more accurately reflect what we are spending on the yearly brake maintenance. Each frontline car generally gets their brakes replaced one time a year. The average was about $1,350. So I used that number. Some came in lower at $1,310. One came in at $1,540. So I wanted to more accurately reflect what we're spending on the vehicle maintenance as it relates to brakes. Also, the budget includes our oil maintenance for the admin cars, the detail cars, and the frontline vehicles. Line 670, PD books and periodicals. That line you'll see reduced by $330. There were still a few of us that like to actually have the paper copy of the books, but as we looked at a couple of them that sat on the shelf from last year, we are reducing, and we're just going to bring in two sets of books, one for the prosecutor to have, and then one for a station copy where people can access in the interest that the internet is down or you needed to have that book for some reason. So there's a reduction there. Line 811, PD seminars and conventions. I've reduced that by $3,000. Last year, I'd asked for an increase as it related to the mandatory training through the governor, and that ethics, implicit bias, and de-escalation techniques were offered free training through the police academy. So we've reduced that expenditure that we expected. So that's why I'm reducing that by $3,000. And so essentially there is an increase of $28,839. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
I see an increase of 5,094.
Oh,
I think
maybe I
he
didn't.
undersold his health insurance savings.
Yeah, that. No, I misread that.
Yeah, your health insurance savings was 29,960.
Okay, you know what?
So you have an old copy.
This is my, thank you. So what can I, that,
29,960.
Do you want a copy of the budget?
All right. I mean, so I think the first question that I have is the cruiser purchase. Could you give us an update as to what the rotation cycle is and why we're not seeing a cruiser in this year's budget?
my initial budget did include, the plan was to include one cruiser purchase. The Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator Brown wanted to see if there was any way that out of this year's budget that we could purchase a new cruiser. And due to short staffing levels, an officer being away on a military assignment for the year, we did see a savings in salary, and I was able to review the budget, and I would be able to utilize funds from this year's budget as to not need to include one for next year.
Okay, thank you.
But we should still expect to see two next year then? Because 212?
We're so that has been the past, the tracking history. We did get hit with, and it's not going to be 3 by any means. We did have one year where a vehicle was involved in an accident. So there were 3 vehicles that are all the same year. So we're trying to sort that. So
Yeah.
there is the potential to see 2, but there will definitely be 1 for next year.
And how many admin vehicles do we have now?
There are 2 administrative vehicles, and then there is 1 unmarked detective's vehicle.
Okay, that's the third one that I was.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the police, 4210.
Under community detail, do
Yes,
you
sir.
typically have higher amounts of detail based on Nightmare New England or other things that would cause it to backlog? Because it seems like, you're only at about 50% utilization so far. year to date.
Certainly. So typically we'll see more community details as it relates to the schools, middle school dances, high school dances, sporting events, and different fundraisers at the talent hall, parades and whatnot. So due to COVID and people not doing the normal activities that they do, we are running a little lower. I looked, I thought the run rate was roughly about 7,000 for so far this year.
Yeah, you still got 4692 left
So-
to go.
so we're gonna
with
see-
2.5 months to go.
Yeah, so we're going to see the basketball games start at the high school that will have 1 or 2 officers depending upon what team they're playing. There's some other events coming up. So we've actually, we're usually right around that and even have spent that line before, but I'm comfortable with the 12. Yes, please.
On that same line, does Spooky World or anybody reimburse any of those costs?
The Spooky World is a private detail. So the community details are related to town events,
Okay, all right. I understand.
charity events and whatnot.
But like school, for example, is that, does the school reimburse for that?
No, they do not.
I think the theory was it comes from the taxpayer, just which pocket.
Correct.
So save them the administrative costs is to back charge it.
Any other questions for the police chief?
The special officers, are those just the school officers?
So we have the 2 retired part-time officers.
Yeah.
One is assigned to the high school. One position is open right now. We're trying to determine what route we're going to move forward with replacing that position.
Okay.
During the COVID 2020 and whatnot, those officers were actually working patrol shifts as opposed to being in the school when the school was closed.
Mr. Hayes, turning it over to you. Any questions, sir?
Yes, one question. The difference between this year's budget and last year's budget. It's 5,094, or did I hear 29,000?
It's 5,094.
All right, I thought I heard 29,000 discussed, but I mean, I'm looking at 5,094 on the spreadsheet.
You did hear 29,000. I think there was a typographical error on the chief's paperwork, which resulted in that error.
Right, predated the good news.
Chief, one more question.
All right, thank you.
Oh, sorry. The 2 overtime lines, they currently do not reflect the increases, the salary adjustment increases. That's correct.
Correct. I did that purposely. I felt that if we could get proper staffing levels, that again, I'm hoping to come in below that if I can get up to full staff. And that's been the goal for, I think, 4 years now, but
Yep, that was one of the selling points for more officers was the reduction in overtime. And we had been seeing it before COVID hit.
yes.
All right, let's shift gears into support services 4210. Or I'm sorry, 4210.50, I guess.
So not too much going on with this. Line 110 PD wages for our dispatchers. We have 2 full-time dispatchers. They are members of the collective bargaining unit, and they will be receiving a 3% wage adjustment, again, as approved by the townspeople. So you will see an increase there. Moving to line 140, dispatch overtime. I reduced that line item by $500. I felt that with that reduction, we would still be able to fill our shifts, and it would work for the town and work for the budget. And that, other than the health insurance, a small reduction under health insurance, there are no other changes to this budget.
There were no contract changes on 345 for dispatch service.
No, sir.
That's a locked-in contract. It's a locked-in amount.
Well, I met with the new sheriff prior to him being elected and afterwards, and I expressed my concern for him to raise that, and he felt comfortable with that number. So it yearly, they've been very good to us. It has not gone up, but also our dispatchers have accepted many more of the responsibilities that they used to do for us for running our criminal record checks. They used to, before we got our DMV spot system where officers can run license checks and warrants checks themselves, we used to have to rely on county. So a lot of what they do for us has reduced. So I think they're comfortable with that number. And unless something changes in the future with the new sheriff, we should be very comfortable with that.
All right. Questions on support?
So on line 140, it looks like, there's still about 4,000 left, 5,300 spent thus far. it seems to be tracking towards the 2020 actual expense.
Yes.
See that it got reduced by 500. Is there room to be able to get that closer to 2020 actual and what you're tracking to, or is there a balloon amount that gets hit in November and December that I'm not seeing?
Yeah, so the 2020 is tough because both dispatchers weren't taking normal vacations. Things were canceled because of flight restrictions, travel restrictions, and whatnot. So as I looked at, Finance Director Karen White sent me an average, and it seemed we'd be around 8,600 to 9,200 and whatnot. So I felt comfortable reducing it to that number this year. We've reduced it, I think, the past 2 years, because it was at 12,000. We reduced it to 10,000. Last year, we reduced it to 9,500. The town administrator wanted us to comb through the budget again, and I felt that was a number that I was comfortable with. And as things hopefully get back to where people are using their earned time and vacationing and whatnot, that's right about where we'll be.
Okay. So you are expecting that over,
Yes, sir.
over November and December, likely there's going to be much higher usage than the rest of the year.
Right. 2019 actuals were just over 9,000. So it seems like last year is an anomaly for everything.
Yep.
So we have to go before that. Hopefully things go back to normal.
Let's hope. All right, other questions, please, on 4210 support? Mr. Hayes?
No questions.
No questions. All right, gentlemen. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Captain.
Do you
Pleasure
want
seeing
to
you.
highlight animal control? Or there's no changes to that, or
Sure.
Oh, sure.
just
We have that
We
one
have to
too,
check
don't
it
we?
off the list.
Yeah, right.
So we talked about it.
line 44? Sorry.
No, 4414. You're right. Thank you.
So this is our animal control budget, and there are no changes, no reductions, or no increases.
There's a $360 increase, right?
Did I miss?
For heating.
You know, I got to get, if Mr. Brunel would give me a computer that I could.
I hear you also require office over there, right?
That's true.
Any questions on animal control?
I like office too. Nope, it's all good.
Mr. Hayes?
Straightforward, no questions.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Captain.
Great. Thank you for your time, everyone.
your
Stay
time.
safe.
Thank you.
I like it.
There is nothing wrong
Nothing
with
wrong with
paper
that.
calendars, paper budgets, and Microsoft Word. Just saying.
Before you get comfortable, should we invite Mr. Lepore for Conservation Commission up to present to the committee? Thank you very much.
Evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. So this is Conservation 4611 that was shifted from last week to this week.
Yeah, we were kicked out of this room. You know?
Appreciate your flexibility.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. So I guess to get started, kind of the big focus for our budget going into 2022 is property management. So you can see we've kind of bumped that number up significantly over what it has been for the last couple of years. A big focus for us with this increase is getting power tools, personal protective equipment on the first line. We currently don't really have anything for anyone to use. If we're going out in the woods to use a chainsaw, it's like we don't really have any. We only have one pair of safety glasses. We're out of hearing protection. I bought my own hard hat for use because it was previously one hard hat, and if multiple people were using power tools, we'd actually take turns with it based on who was doing the most dangerous job. An ocean inspector was somewhere, shed a tear. And currently we only have one operational chainsaw that was donated to us. All of our chainsaws are donated, and 3 of those 4 are not operational at this time. And one of them runs kind of well, but when we brought it to a shop for maintenance, they immediately turned around and said, "This is way too old. We can't service this for you." So we're kind of down on our last leg with equipment. And the few other things that we use heavily, like the brush mower, That one's starting to get a little tired and a little mercurial. Sometimes it doesn't want to start up and it's starting to have some issues. We use that heavily, whether that be for making trails, maintaining trails, mowing grass, either at the muster field or at the top field at Morris Falls. And we also are looking to get a what they call the protective pants for when you use a chainsaw. We currently don't have those either, and those are extremely important. The second line is for things like lumber. We don't really have any wood for either making footbridges. We need to vehicle proof some of our trailheads because we've been having some issues with people driving ATVs onto trails where it isn't authorized and then getting into wetlands, things like that. Maybe making a couple new kiosks. But those are that's kind of the significant one for us going into next year.
Where are you pausing for questions?
Yes.
Okay. Where are you planning to store the equipment? I know we had that conversation in years past, but
So we have a shed behind the town hall that we use to store some of our stuff, but we are kind of outgrowing it. So we've started to use the old fire station, and we're kind of running out of room there, it seems. We have our trailer and the brush mower is stored over there in the back, and we had some historical artifacts stored there as well, because we're essentially out of room in the old shed here.
and is there an opportunity to leverage any of the highway department's equipment for your activities?
So a couple of the tools we have, two of the chainsaws and some of the hand clippers were donated from the highway department, and I know that we can borrow some of their equipment if we need to. However, the issue is if they're using it, or maybe their stuff is out of order, or they need to use it and they're concerned that, if they give it to somebody else, it might get broken. I know we've been kind of having a back and forth about, when we can use other departments' equipment when we need it. That is a possibility. But just in case, so if I get a call or something about a tree down across a trail, I can just kind of go grab our equipment, because I do not have access to highway facilities, their facility over by the transfer station.
So how much is a chainsaw?
It varies significantly depending on the size of the chainsaw. They can range from, it really depends. I think we'd want to go for a gas saw, and those can go between $300 to over $1,000, I think.
Okay.
So those can
You don't
vary.
have it. Is it listed? Would that be included under the tools and power equipment?
So initially we had 2 running chainsaws when I made this, and
Yeah.
now we're down to one. I mean, the second one, that older one, that one might start working again. It kind of depends. Needs to be tinkered with a little bit, but we can get a cheaper chainsaw that'll do the job for like $300, and I don't think that would set us out particularly. But I was kind of aiming more towards like a weed whacker, so that we could take some of the stress off of the brush mower, because making sure, like in the summertime, the grass around the trails is neatened up. That's a pretty frequent activity for us.
Well, before turning it over to questions, I'd like to commend you first and foremost. Say you've done a fantastic job maintaining the trails in town, and I know this line goes directly to that type of maintenance, which you're actively doing on behalf of the town. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other questions for this particular line on 430?
No, it's just going to be annual discussion we have every year that the taxpayers authorize the use of the conservation funds to fund these maintenance project items. So my question would be, if you need a chainsaw, when you have the funds available, why aren't we buying them?
So there's kind of so the Warren article, we do need advice on it, because the Warren article actually authorizes us to use that account for whatever powers we have bestowed upon us by RSA 36A. So we do need to get clarification on what we can actually purchase with that account. So in terms of land management.
Because there was one a few years ago that
Yes.
expanded it to authorize maintenance expenses. To
Well,
me, these fall under maintenance. It's even property management, it's maintenance.
yeah,
So-
so you're talking about the 2014 Warren article, which I believe was Warren Article 15.
Probably.
And yeah, it doesn't actually explicitly, from what I remember, and I could be wrong, but I believe it just defers to our powers within RSA 36A.
That's pretty impressive if that's right.
I think we did.
But to your point, it does say in that state law management, but we need to specifically see if it means specifically property management and what would be covered.
All right, so then I would encourage you to seek that clarification, because in my mind, you already have the funds available to maintain this. So you should be tapping into that fund before we go to the taxpayers. Because in my mind, when I voted yes on that, it was so that you would have the tools necessary to do your work. So the fact that we don't have the tools and you have the money is like, what's going on?
Well, it does. So the warrant article would permit us to do that. But in the instance that we could buy those types of equipment, we would really want to be careful not to overdo it, because right now our cup kind of runneth over. But, since we're using that for property acquisition, that account could shrink up very quickly. And all of a sudden, well, maybe we don't really have that money anymore. So I know in the past there was concern about the precedent of us exhausting that account when it was initially intended for property acquisition. And it's from what I've seen from other towns, it seems a little irregular to kind of double dip in that account.
Litchfield has no problem being unique. So
that's true. That's very true.
So like I said, I would encourage you to look at that, because my opinion would be you have the funds. That's where we should be going. And I understand what you're saying with land purchases and acquisitions.
Sure.
But the reality is the size of your account and interest rates easily cover this 2,200. You could tap into this 2,200 on an annual expense and not touch your principal.
Yep. So we will be reaching out to legal counsel and asking them about that. And I can't remember what else I was going to say with that. I'll have to circle back.
And it's not to say that I don't think you need the equipment.
Mhm.
I want to be very clear. I absolutely applaud all the work you do. I've seen the posts, and I think these tools are necessary. I just think there's already a mechanism available by which to fund them.
I could foresee leveraging those funds for the upfront purchase of the equipment, and then having a smaller line item for some ongoing maintenance or fuel cost.
And you'll be welcome to vote for that.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
What other questions do we have on this line? No? Would you like to take us through the rest of the budget?
Yeah, I'm so kind of like the police department. There weren't. I don't think there were really huge changes to dues. Those are pretty much consistent year over year. We're a member of the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions, and they're kind of a resource for all the town conservation commissions to use that we all buy into, and we receive support, advice, as well as kind of like at the state level we have a voice. But that cost is pretty much the same year over year. I just got the invoice for our dues this year. It's $500. So that it doesn't really change. Publications, I think that's going to be about the same. We now have access to add information onto the town website. And since we are conservation oriented, I'd rather, do it a paperless avenue when we're reaching out to the public and taking advantage of the town's website. However, I can see the possibility of, laminating either a map or, some information about local wildlife on certain kiosks, property specific information. So I think $40 is a pretty good fee for that. Supplies are about the same, whether that's printing, stapling.
Supplies are up $400, it looks like.
Oh, supplies are up $400. All right. That might be, that will be for other things like signage, office supplies, booklets, things like that. And I anticipate we should probably get some more of those in this coming year, especially when we're looking to communicate more with the public.
Mm-hmm.
So that did go up.
Mileage and tolls.
Yeah, mileage and tolls. So for the last 2 years, we have an annual seminar that members of the conservation commissions go to in Pembroke for NHACC, our annual meeting. And that mileage is typically used for, going out of town and for things like that. So for the last 2 years, it's been held remotely. This year as well. Next year, I anticipate we will be back in person. So we'll have to drive back up to Pembroke, and then people can be compensated for their mileage going up there. But that's wishful thinking.
And it looks like we're going to start up the fishing derby again.
Yes. So $650, that is a split right down the middle of the cost of prizes and stocking the fish into the water. We're splitting this with the Recreation Commission. So this is going to be a 2-agency endeavor. And then seminars and meetings, there is also an additional fee for members to join the annual conservation meeting, which is about $50. They pay for it, and then they get compensated by the town through that line to attend. And I did anticipate perhaps that there could be an additional either meeting or course that a member could take throughout the year to just kind of, because it's a very complicated thing, natural science, earth sciences. So I was thinking that maybe our membership could kind of get engaged more with our state, local partners, private partners like the Audubon Society, attend some trainings, and then bring that information back. So
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions on 4611 conservation?
You got a line item in here for a weed whacker. I know somebody's been trying to give you one for the last 6 months. Brand new in the box. He's never come to pick it up.
yeah, well, Jason goes out with the brush mower like
Just
every
saying.
week. He's ahead of me, so yeah, I'll
72 Charles Bancroft.
all right, all
Got
right,
home, see him. He's in the garage.
okay. We'll let you know.
Other questions on conservation? Mr. Hayes?
No questions, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Appreciate your time this evening. Thank
Perfect.
you very much.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you for coming. It's one of the first times I remember seeing somebody representing your board committee. So thank you for taking the time.
We'll switch back over to the town. Do you want to say planning board for
If
last?
you want to go.
Huh?
I don't mind if you want to go. I'm
Oh, okay.
here all night anyway.
We're both here until the end. So.
So where are we going?
Let's see. Want to do insurance 4196?
You want him to lead off with excellent news?
Yes. Let's start it off on a positive.
Oh, this is not the kind.
But it's not health insurance.
Oh,
It's town insurance.
Yeah, it's other.
It's still flat.
It's still
Yeah,
zero.
it's,
I was trying to
so the rest of the night will you know some of these things we don't have the information yet. So
See,
the
so it's
town
not-
insurance, other insurance, we don't have the premium rates yet for our general liability insurance policy.
So it could be flat, it could be up, could be down.
That
I
will
don't know.
be it'll be coming in anytime now.
It's somewhere on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. I have personnel administration 4155.
So this line here, the bottom line is actually up $84,672. If you go up to the top, you'll see that we have a slight decrease of $33 in our flexible spending account. That's the administrative fee. And that's just driven by the number of people that we have currently enrolled in the flexible spending account. Social Security, Medicare taxes, those you'll see that those are up, really driven by employee wage increases that are given to our non-union and union employees. And then you'll see the next three large increases here that's really driving that bottom line is employee retirement for the what we call just our regular employees like me, and we have our firefighters and our police. And you'll hear this, I think, on the school when you meet with the school that there's another rate increase. And so this represents not only the rate increase, but again, when we give all those raises, the
So-
prior year, when you grant those raises in the union contracts, the union contract, was not a full 6 months. It was that raise was given the last quarter of the year. The non-union was July 1st. So when you roll into 2022, you're now absorbing 12 months of that cost on top of the rate increase.
How much is the rate increase? Just for
So the employee, it's three categories, and for the employees like me, it's 14.53% is what the town pays. The police is 33.88 and fire is 32.99.
And what was the rate last year? So I guess I'm curious as to what the increase is in the yearly rate.
Employees were 11.17. Police was 28.
That's up
And
5 points.
That's a lot.
5% increase.
yeah,
Yeah.
fire, I don't remember what fire was.
I mean, it sounds like, 5%, but when you think about it, it's actually a much a larger
And
percentage.
I think this increase probably is July 1st, 2022.
Yes.
So the rate increases I just gave you will take effect July 1st, 2022.
Oh, so this is only like 6 months of the
21, no, they did
increase.
2021.
They did?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
And then the last thing is the wage in expense. This is our non-union performance reviews. So this number of $15,000 has been the same since we've started the program.
Mhm.
And it's not been adjusted. It needs to be adjusted in 2022 to continue to sustain it. Just because you've had, what we do is we pool all this money together in between the fire department. It's all the non-union employees. So fire, the town administrative staff, any the highway, solid waste.
So what would it represent an average increase of?
So we took a look at that last year and it came out at about 2.4 was the average review. The
Right.
max that someone could receive is 3%. And if anyone received anything higher than that, it was on a case-by-case basis, reviewed and approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
And which that did happen. We talked about it in the solid waste department. We made a couple adjustments to stay competitive.
But doesn't that percentage increase roll into their budgets?
So what happens is when the performance review that was granted this year would come out of this line. We don't really touch it. They just overexpend the salary line. But this is what protects the bottom line. We then capture that whatever wage increase was given.
Yeah.
We capture it in
the budget.
in this budget. So you'll see in 2022, you'll see wage increases. Those are all the result of the July 1st performance reviews.
I see.
But this will always show zero as an actual because you're not actually taking it from this line. Right?
Yeah, that hurts. Questions on personnel 4155? Mr. Hayes?
No questions, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is there a possibility that the workman's comp insurance is also going to change as rates become known?
That'll be coming with the property liability and the
Okay.
unemployment.
Right. Be interesting to see what happens. Fewer people in theory have gotten injured, but whether or not.
Yeah, the workers' comp covered COVID too. If they could prove that they had it, they got it from work.
Really?
Yeah.
How can you even prove that?
All right, let's shift gears into advertising 4197, please.
All right, so the bottom line here is an increase of $396. The first line is printing. That is our voter guide sample ballot that we now work with the school department, a joint effort. We've had to increase that. We started off our first year, it was, I forget what the actual expense was, but we came in right around that $1,200 last year. So that's where you see the increase of $350. Public notices and ads, no change estimated. You can see a 3-year average there, but I just don't see there being any large increase in our public notices. These are all the legal notices that the Board of Selectmen, I think even our budget hearings that we do and stuff like that. Dues and subscriptions, we have 2 major agencies that we pay membership to, the New Hampshire Municipal Association. I don't have their rate right now. That will be set when they have their annual meeting, which is coming up in November. It doesn't usually change drastically, so I'm fine just carrying last year's actual amount that was billed. That's what 774 is. And in RPC, you can see they updated they're just holding their fee flat from last year at 6,288.
Okay. Questions on 4197? Going around the room? Nope. Mr. Hayes?
No questions. Thank you.
All right. I think we have a couple of other, we still have health agencies, correct? 4415?
Yeah, there's nothing there.
I know.
That's going to be a warrant article. And so when you're reviewing warrant articles, that's what you'll see that. And we have the committee. We do have I just received the last request. So we'll be organizing our committee that takes a look at all of this, and then they'll be submitting a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
Excellent. Would you mind if we shift into planning board before we get into default budget and tax cap?
Sure.
I think that makes sense.
Sure.
Right.
Is it okay?
Stevens, is that okay?
Sure. Is it all right to speak from here? So we don't have to
Yes,
shuffle?
please.
Okay.
Ms. Stevens, who sits on the planning board, will be presenting the budget to us tonight.
For the planning board, yep. So 4191, I guess I can just go through it line by line. The wages, our administrative assistant, she handles all of our minutes and does all the paperwork, and there's a lot of paperwork for the planning board. So that's the yearly increase for her wages. There's no health insurance or dental insurance. Our NRPC planner, we keep very busy, and but there's no increase there as of right now. I guess there might be. I've heard talks of potentially the Board of Selectmen is looking at. Was it the Board of Selectmen or the Capital Improvement Committee were looking at impact fees?
So, yeah, I think
Right,
it'll
so
be
they're-
all. I think it'll be all three. Planning
Somebody
board,
needs to.
CIP,
Right,
and
so,
selectmen.
so there might be an additional, I think that was talked about as a separate contract actually, but this is just our standard planning board business, which hasn't changed. The public notices, that has gone up because the newspaper costs, it used to be Hudson Litchfield News, and you can see the actual expense was much higher in 2020 than was expected because of that. I think the cost for, I think it's the Union Leader, is $150 versus I think it was like $30 for the town paper before.
And
Postage.
that's still a requirement, huh?
It's a requirement for certain things. So when the planning board is proposing to change zoning regulations, site plan regulations, those types of things, they're actually required to advertise in the newspaper still. For subdivision plans, they now can just advertise, give notice on the website, and of course they're giving direct notice to all the abutters.
Right.
The postage, there is no change to, but it's normally paid by the applicant. Even though the postage rate is going up, there shouldn't be a change to the budget there. Books and periodicals, we don't spend that much on there, and there's still no change. And actually, there's no change on any of these. But it's just your standard, mileage and tolls and seminars that the other boards and committees have also take advantage of.
All right. Questions for
questions?
planning board 4191?
I have one on line 120.
Okay.
Is there some sort of degree or certification that's required for that particular administrative assistant?
I'm not sure, but I believe she's been doing it for over 30 years. So she will be difficult to replace for sure, but I'm not sure about the degree requirements. I can get that for you.
Other questions?
Has the planning board ever discussed, rather than having a volunteer board, or the Board of Selectmen discussed having a town planner instead of contracting those services with NRPC? Is that, am I way off?
I think it's, from what I understand, it's less expensive to contract that out than
Okay.
hiring one on our own.
Yeah, we're paying 20 hours a month versus a lot more than that. That's what, 240 a year versus 2080 for a full-time position, the 10th.
May not be a full-time position.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
It'll end up full-time. Every part-time position in town ends up full-time at some point.
I think at some point in time, it needs to be an item of discussion. Because what a town planner does when you have them in your community, they're working not only with your developers, potential commercial developers and residential, they're working with other boards and committees and all your departments. They are the focus point for everything that's going on in your community. And I've worked with full-time planners. They're so instrumental, and they're based on what they're seeing and hearing in the community. They can be very proactive in bringing forth items to the planning board and the board of selectmen and other land use regulation boards, our conservation commission, heritage commission, zoning board of adjustment, and really bring forward items so that we're being proactive and thinking down the road. Not that a contracted service can't do this, but that person, isn't always, they're not here in the town office. They're not interacting with the community on a
And
day-to-day
I don't mean
basis.
to diminish
So there's some real value there. And that's, when you see a town this size, 8,000, and you got, you look at a lot of the undeveloped lands and some of the pressure that's around us, from Manchester, Londonderry, Hudson. I think someday this community is going to have that discussion. I don't know when it's coming, but I'm sure it'll be
And I
coming
don't
sooner
think
than
that-
later.
To diminish anything that you do as a board. I think it's an integral part. It just seems like, we talk a lot about where's this town going, there's a lot going on in Litchfield, and it's a huge job. So,
Yeah, but I mean, I can see the holes, like almost every meeting that I listen to in town, the holes of the school board's talking about this, and why aren't they talking to these people about this? And the library wants this. Well, they should be talking to all those people.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the communication between, if that's that position, I'm sure the planning board will be open to it, because we're constantly trying to say, like, hey, well, there's a master plan here. Has anybody seen this before?
Right.
Because I
right.
know every board wants their own, right? Every board has their own direction. So,
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't mean to be like, you can be replaced.
oh no, this
that
is
wasn't my intention at all. It just seems like there's a lot that goes into it. And how many people are on the planning board?
I believe we have 7 members right now.
Oh.
We're looking for alternates. If anybody wants to join.
I have a question about the Rpc Planner. So we spent a little under 10 in 2020. And it looks like, if my mental math is good, we're on track to spend maybe somewhere between 12 and 13 this year. So just curious, the 18, is that just based on the estimation of the 20 hours per month? Is there other historical numbers we could point to for that?
I believe so. I'm actually surprised that we're not spending more than that.
I mean, we've still got about 55% left in that, and just based on October, November, December, we'd be at about 12 or 13,000 for the year for that.
So 2016, it was 20,800, and
That's what was spent.
that was spent.
Okay.
2017 actual expense 16,700.
2016 was 20,000.
Yep.
20,007.
Yeah, so it's been about that range, I think.
Okay.
It's going to be driven by, and I know the planning board, they've been talking about, they're working on sections of the master plan that they're trying to get updated. We're now, the planner is actually asked to be part of our capital improvements committee meeting. So we're going to be meeting monthly now, and I have a feeling that process is going to go on it could go on for a year. And again, it's all driven by the planning board's needs. So, and some of that money is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's gross budgeted, but we we'll take in some money from developers. So we are able to bill out to the developer for time spent reviewing plans
Okay.
for them. That shows an offset by revenue, or is that just done
No.
offset?
It comes
It's
out
done
of the
by
escrows
escrow.
accounts, yeah.
So, but any work that is done on development is billed out directly to that developer.
Thank you very much for the presentation. All right, so we have default budget, which I don't know if that's ready.
It was, it was just kind of listed there.
And then tax cap will be
Placeholder.
a good conversation to have.
And we still need information for the default, your insurances.
We do, right?
Yeah.
There's missing pieces to the budget before they can present that.
That also influences the tax cap
And the
too,
tax
right?
cap is, so what I've done with the tax cap right now is I've put numbers in there with knowing what articles were approved, and but there's still just a few moving parts. The state revenues are a big part of that, the highway block grant and the revenue sharing. And we won't know those exact amounts until we have our tax rate set. So what you see down there for 2022, there's some assumptions built in there based on actual votes taken last year, and then what I'm expecting state, the numbers that the state will provide. One of the things, though, that I just received notice today is that we could, in 2021, when they go set our tax rate, it's possible that the revenue sharing funds may increase substantially, which would carry over into 2022. I haven't had a chance really to read that information, so it might be that it just starts in 2022. And my initial take on this is that we could be increasing our revenue sharing by an additional 200,000. And if that were to happen, then any new revenues directly has an impact on your tax cap. So you would see where we stand right now, that negative 24,000, that would turn to $224,000 below the tax cap. If in fact, the information I received today is going to happen when we set our tax rate in 2021.
So currently where we stand today, right, the operating budget all in for all accounts reviewed before any budget committee voting is at $7,442,795. That represents a tax cap under, with the health insurance from last week and the savings that we received from the town, thankfully, results in $24,946 under the tax cap. Because last week it was over. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
And just for any of the new members, just understand that this is the operating budget as exists right now. When we start having warrant articles that ask for money for taxation,
Yes.
that starts to get calculated into this. So it looks good right now, but as we start talking about warrant articles, we've been through the process before.
And the budget committee just needs to have an awareness of, once we are presented those warrant articles, on what we vote for and what we're not able to vote for, so we can maintain underneath the tax cap. Right? So you could personally agree with the warrant article, but because that might drive it over the tax cap, we as a committee are not able to support it. Make sense?
Makes sense. Is that what the tax cap warrant article said, though?
Yes.
We can't.
Yep.
Includes warrant articles.
Yep.
And it's not suspended until there's a vote at deliberative to suspend it, but we're still obligated to present a budget that meets the tax cap.
Yep.
So are you anticipating any year-end funds that you could use for some of these warrant articles listed below?
So yeah, those are, I was taking a look at the capital improvements plan, and those were earmarked for, I listed items that were in 2021, which were not brought forward, and I listed items that were proposed in 2022.
Mhm.
And so I've just listed them. And
So we have 2 fire trucks.
yeah, but the discussion last year was, 1 fire truck. So
yeah,
but I just wanted to kind of collect everything from the CIP committee.
Is that something we think we'll be seeing though, fire trucks?
I hope that you see a fire truck.
Okay.
Funding is going to be, that's going to be the question,
And we're
how it's funded.
Exploring used purchases too.
What's
Like,
that?
We're exploring the ability to purchase. Is it new or used?
I believe the proposal will be a new.
I think we wait until we understand what the
All right.
proposal is.
No, I understand. I would just encourage them, if they're seriously going to pursue such a large expense, we explore all options, including purchases of used equipment from neighboring communities. So,
There will be, again, the Board of Selectmen has not even begun
Right.
discussing this, but I have, in the past, we've had discussions about trying to bring another full-time employee on at the Highway Department. So
Yeah.
I
I
will
was
have
actually
that
surprised.
discussion with the selectmen. I don't know where it'll go. The assessing capital reserve fund, we started that last year. So obviously, if we're going to stay on pace, we need to appropriate $25,000, whether that comes from the unassigned fund balance or taxation. Road paving program, I'd like to see continued. Last year it was funded at 100,000. The capital improvements plan, we were trying to keep it at 200. It's been off and on in the past few years because we've been able to have some other funds that have come in that we've been able to use to sort of maintain our paving program at about $400,000 a year. The block grant's 200, and we'd like to supplement that block grant with another 200. And the rest are all CIP equipment with the Dara Pond parking lot. I don't know if the Rec Commission's still on board with that, but that was an estimate to actually pave it, do some drainage issues so that could be
Mr.
a
Ruggles,
more
I know.
usable, friendly lot in the wintertime.
All right. Any questions on tax cap? And kind of where we stand today?
How does that work then if, say, you want a light duty truck and I want a medium duty truck, but they're both under the tax cap? Like, do we each vote?
That was my question.
Okay.
Right.
Like,
If
how does
two
it-
added
how does it-
together.
how
It's
does
the
committee
committee
vote?
recommendation,
Yeah.
right? And so the committee needs to come to some type of conclusion as to what we're going to support and what we're not collectively.
Yeah.
Yep. You're right, because if somebody's out in the 4-4 vote, what good is it? Right? I mean,
But not all of these may come forward as warrant.
Yeah,
articles.
right.
it's-
These are,
I'm just trying to capture what I know is
I know some of these trucks
documented in
were
the CIP plan.
some of these trucks were purchased out of funds from last year, and I believe this year. I don't know that. I'm assuming. I doubt we'll see 2 fire trucks. You know what I mean? So
Right.
okay.
Most years there's 27 warrant articles in the town senate, though, so there'll be a few, I'm sure.
and that's the way it should be. I'm perfectly fine with that.
So I have prepared, I'm still kind of finalizing it. I have prepared my annual spreadsheet that everyone so enjoys. I haven't shared it with the committee. I am sensitive to sharing it this year, just because what I don't want to do is influence any votes, which I think may have occurred in the years past. And, I want to be completely objective. As we conclude our review sessions, I'd like to thank the town. I'd like to thank all department heads. This is really a year where I truly believe everyone's put a lot of thought and care into the budget. I think it's a very tight and reasonable budget in terms of what's been presented. The picture here, I'm not sharing my screen, am I? I thought I was. Let me see. If I stop sharing here and share again and share. There we go. Here. All right, and I can make this bigger, I think. So one of the things in the spreadsheet that I always like to track is just our actuals and budgets and, kind of where we're landing year over year over year. Currently with the budget as it sits right now, this is the total operating budget. We're at a 3.21% increase over what was voter approved in March, and that was at 7,203,000. So as you can see, certainly over the last 5 or 6 years, We've gone from a $5.2 million to a $7.4 million budget. Obviously, big things impacting that. Just as a reminder for those who are viewing, we have a new fire station. That's a big part of this. We have new communication equipment from the IT side. We have cost increases, health insurance increases, wage increases, staffing increases, equipment increases as everyone's experiencing, and we also certainly have fuel increases, etc. So just to give everyone a flavor and some background on those numbers. Okay.
And that doesn't reflect any increase in revenues.
Correct.
That's what we spend.
Just what we spend. Yep. All right.
I do have one question just while you have this
Yeah.
up, Chairman Cutter. So, Mr. Brown, if I take a look at this, I know there was a lot of hemming and hawing last year between the town and the school about the budget and the fact that it was only a 1.93% increase, and on the school it was a negative increase. Now that you're halfway through October and going into the final stretch, what was your top two negative impacts by us trimming that down to a 1.93% increase?
Well, we didn't, as we sit here today, because of staffing issues in the police department and the fire department, that freed up a lot because we had vacancies.
Okay.
And so it didn't drive any alarms at this point in time. The greatest cut, was probably the fuel that really stands out. That just keeps running right now and over. And so if the police department and fire department had been fully staffed, and you start having the lines like the fuel being overrun, I don't know where I get that money from.
Okay.
So that would cause us to have to take a step back and look at how are we going to make up for this possible $18,000 overrun. And I'm looking at the highway department. If you look at their budget right now, depending on what happens in November and December, for the first time, we may be going, I'm pretty confident we're going to go over in our contracted services. And SALT, he doesn't have much money left. So if fire and police had been fully staffed and they're not going to be turning any money back, and I got the overruns in the fuel and potentially highway, those would be my two areas of concern.
So the follow-up question would be, and probably would have been better suited when fire and police were here, but have you heard anything from either of those two departments about major issues, concerns based on the reduction in staffing?
I've not.
Okay.
And again, it's one of those, we're still in that COVID in and out of it. So,
yeah.
The training, remember how
some would argue you get more calls.
A lot of cuts were made in training.
Yep.
And that was a little alarming, but at the end of the day, the COVID stayed in place and nobody was traveling and going to training. So we've just seen that open up in the last 3-4 months. Very limited,
And then final question, not necessarily related to this, but you'll need to refresh my memory on this one. There was something about our bond rating and there was a certain account. Is that the unassigned fund balance that needs to have a certain amount in it in order for us to then at that point maintain a certain credit worthiness?
No. So we don't have, the town's too small to actually be bond rated. And that's why when we went to for the fire station bond, we go to the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. And so most towns and schools will use that service.
Okay.
Because that's the bond banks rated based on all the town and cities that participate in it.
Wasn't there something last year that you mentioned though, that there's a certain balance?
It's the unassigned fund balance. You have, the town has its own policy, which really kind of mirrors the Department of Revenue Administration's policy.
Okay.
And they want you to have, the unassigned fund balance needs to it's guidelines. But it's on your tax rate setting form. So it's they take a look at it every year. It's calculated, and they want you to be somewhere between 5% and 17% of your general fund operating budget.
Okay.
And we are right about at 9%, and that's all calculated, each year we set our tax rate.
That includes the school district budget as well, right?
What's that?
That includes the school district budget as well.
So, yeah, so when there's two ways of looking at it, there's the general fund budget, which would be the county government, the school, and the town. And if you're looking at the towns on its own, I think we're looking at just revenues. Pretty much, though, it's a calculation to support the school, the county government, and the town.
Any other questions for any of the budgets presented, or any other questions for the town in general? No. Mr. Hayes?
No questions. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
That is it.
Thank you.
I see the sigh of relief.
Yeah, the data that we sent out today, take a look at it. We put a lot of time into going back, researching all the warrants and minutes. And so I think there's some real good information there.
There is.
Real good information. And a lot of those warrant articles I actually totally forgot about. So it was a good process for me to go back and look at what we've done and how we funded it. And
I did have a question. It says annual costs, but some of these aren't repeatingly annual, right? Like the old town hall paint was $25,000. That was a one-time thing, right?
so the warrant articles I picked were just one-time costs.
Okay, if these are all one-time costs.
And then when I say one time though, I had one table that said warrant articles with
No
a
new
short
tax.
or long-term financial impact. So a short or long-term, short would be like a 5-year lease payment for a plow truck.
Mhm.
A long-term would be if we ratify a union contract, then initially, it may only be $30,000, but that's there forever. And then it's compounded 3%, whatever, forever. But I only captured the original principal amount that was in the warrant article. And then the other table is where we use the unassigned fund balance and just did an outright purchase using previously taxed dollars.
Bless you.
Was the 2011 petition article on the hydrants, was that where the town took over the hydrants?
Yeah, that was just, I just wanted to point out that because fire hydrants, we always talk about every year, and have a healthy discussion, but it was a petition article, I understand, that was brought forward, and the citizens did agree to take on that cost of paying for the fire hydrants.
That was in our bills.
Yeah, so what was
Right,
happening
exactly.
was
Right.
like about half the town was paying for them and all the town benefited. So it was an opportunity to get those who weren't on Penachuk to actually pay for the service they were receiving. So I appreciate
added a bunch.
It was very testy back then, I remember.
it was like $20 a month. I'm like,
It was like 10.
mine was big. I don't know, maybe it was 15, but it was monthly, and it's. I was like, it's like my water meter. I'm like, can I just buy the stupid thing? Why do I have to pay every month for it?
All right, let's let the town go. Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
participation. Yeah, we'll see you next week. Just to recap on where kind of the meetings are headed, I pulled up the meeting planner that we revised actually back in June, which is what's being presented here on screen. Sorry for the neck turn. We have our October 21st meeting, which is next Thursday, in which we had town voting. Now, some of these budgets we are not going to be able to vote on because we don't have enough information. So I think the expectation is we will vote on the budgets that we can.
Okay.
And then we will just table the budgets that we can't until we bottom line vote at some point in December. Right? October 28th, if we do not need the meeting, we won't have the meeting. It depends really on our progress next week. So that's still a tentative meeting if it's required. On November 2nd for the school, this is when we anticipated receiving the school budget. For those members that would like it in hard copy, it would be good to put in the request now. Please send me an email. I will forward them over to Chairman Harrison, Chairwoman Harrison. Thank you. And we'll get those presented. And then we have 2 review sessions that are being led by the school. I received a note from LCTV asking me about those. Hopefully
Okay.
they reached out to you.
Yep. I will make sure that they are scheduled. And I wanted to confirm the time with the committee on the 4th and the 6th. 8th.
The 8th, yep.
The 8th. We typically start our school board meetings at 5, but I know majority of the board can't make it that early. So
Yeah,
six.
that's not happening.
Last year, I believe we landed at 6:30. Is that
Yeah, I think
Is that okay
6:30. I
with
mean, you
everyone?
guys are leading these meetings. The budget
Mhm.
committee is simply participating in these
Is it gonna be
meetings.
similar to last year?
Very similar to last year. I believe there are conflicting meetings, I know, on that Monday in this room. So the request is that we do it
right
at
at the
CHS.
auditorium? Yep,
Yep,
that's
in
the
the
plan.
auditorium. And so 6:30, I think, will be
Yep.
fine.
And those will be open to the public as well.
Accommodate. And also the WebEx. I know we lost
Mhm.
our IT director, but if there's the WebEx, so for those virtually who want to participate, can.
I will not make the Monday meeting. I can't just say that right now. I have scheduling conflicts for Mondays, so
Okay.
I will be here as soon as I can on the Thursday.
Well, they will be recorded, and if you cannot make them, I would encourage everyone to
Okay.
watch the recording. And then from there, we're taking the 11th, right, in that week period to absorb all the materials. If there were people who did not make the meetings, that's a good week to watch those meetings and get caught up. And then our budget review with the school will happen on November 18th. This is one where we said we would consider an earlier start time, given there's a lot to go through in that evening.
I make a recommendation for next week in hopes of trying not to meet on the 28th.
Mm.
Propose an earlier start time, 6:30.
It's the will of the committee.
I feel like if we give ourselves as much time as possible, then hopefully we can avoid meeting on the 28th.
Yeah, I'm gonna say right. I can't make that. I probably likely can't. I barely bowl in at 7, so I was cool with the reviews being early because I could catch up. But when we get into the detailed discussions, it's going to be a challenge for me to be here by 6:30.
Then we keep it at 7. Right? All right. Any questions on the schedule and kind of what the next few weeks look like?
Nope.
All right. I'll shift gears into other member input, new business. Can we just say that this has to be a record and that, we're getting out of here 45 minutes early? That's pretty
Not
good,
bad.
right?
Well done.
All right, hearing no other member input, new business, we will shift gears into our second public input for the evening. Again, seeing nobody rushing in to talk to us, we will close public input, and then we will proceed with adjournment.
Motion made.
We have a motion by Ms. Douglas,
Second.
second by Ms. Harrison. We'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Mr. Sun, Ms.
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Barca.
Yes.
And Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
We are adjourned 9:00 and same spot, same time next week on the 21st at 7 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening.